Guide Kids thing, a couple of other things we talked about in the past. There's this idea that's referred to, I guess, as the threshold, and it's this non-physical barrier that is kind of a protection of all beings with free will, I guess. I tried to find like the idea, there's an idea of vampires can't come in unless they're invited, all these other sort of things. So I wanted to try and sort of dig into the beginnings of that idea, and it's really elusive. I couldn't find shit. There was just a lot of people's ideas on where it may have came from. And even when I was digging through this like old, what was it, the Black Eyed Kids book from last week, there was a story I came across that was from the 50s that was kind of when I was trying to find like where was the earliest stage of this. I'll just run through it. It's a fun story. It's really quick though. There's a kid back in the 50s. He's 16 years old, I believe, and really affable kid, just like in a tiny little small town, knew all the kids in the town, but really friendly little kid, loved to play with all the little kids and chat with everyone. He was loved to chat, this little fella. His name was Harold.
Aw, Harold.
So Harry is walking home from school one afternoon, and he lives on sort of a rural property, and you kind of walk up this road to your house, and there's this like timber fence on the edge of the property as he's walking up the road, and he spots this young kid, and I think he said he was maybe like 8 or 9 years old, not real old, sitting on the fence, didn't recognize him, and the kid was kind of looking down, and old affable Harry goes up to the young fella and tries to start a conversation with him. Says, "Yeah, how you going? What are you up to? What's your name? I haven't seen you before." And I guess this kid doesn't look up. Again, like pretty common trait, like we've heard before last week. And Harry like hits him again, like, "Hey, you all right, buddy?" So this kid says to him, "I want to go to your house. Take me to your house."
No.
And then
No. You got to practice saying no.
Absolutely not.
No.
So that's exactly
you can't
what
come
Harry
home with
thought.
me. Maybe like 5 more dates.
So Harry starts backing up, and in his head, he's like, "Fuck you, creepy little dude. I'm out of here."
Yeah, you think?
And this kid almost like, again, sort of reads his mind. And he says, "I want to go to your house. Take me to your house. Now, don't try and run away from me. You're going to walk me to your house." And Harry's like, "Fuck this." And then sprints. Dead sprint.
Yeah.
Off like as fast as
Run,
he can.
Harry.
All the way back up to the house. So Harry's running to the house. He doesn't look around because he's like terrified. And he hears, just as he nears the edge of his house, like the doorway, the threshold to his house.
The threshold.
He hears right behind him this horrible, otherworldly, like, he thought it was like a big cat or some sort of bobcat. It was like this screeching scream, like, rah, like terrifying.
Jesus.
Just as he reaches the threshold of his house and gets inside. And then, like, this is the end of the story. Is like he tells his parents, and his parents are like, "What the fuck happened?" There's like, "This kid chasing me." And I guess his dad, like, walks outside with a shotgun. He's going to shoot some little kid, I guess. Anyway, it was the 50s. It was a different time.
50s. Let's do this.
Yeah. But anyway, this thing seemed to be like, it let out this cry of, like, anguish as he was reaching this threshold of his house, right? So it got me thinking. I tried to dig up, like, where does this come from? This idea of there being this sanctuary that is your personal space that these beings can't get into.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different, I guess, ideas behind it. Like I said, nothing solid ever came up of like, oh, it's from this old, folktale or whatever. Nothing ever came up like that. It's just always been around, which was odd. So here's a couple of different ideas that I came across. So there's the idea of house spirits, like brownies and hobgoblins and house elves, like Dobby from, what's that, Harry Potter show?
Yeah.
And, there's the idea that there is these good entities living in your abode that kind of are helpful and that ward off evil. Then there's the idea, Josh, that you kind of brought up as well, and it's the idea of this whole thing being a metaphor for bringing sin into your life. Whatever vice that may be, drinking, masturbation. I don't know why I chose that just then. But, all these different things. All these different things that...
why did I laugh so hard? I don't know either. It was good, though.
Big D. So, that could be one of the reasons that this is a thing. Like, the idea of demons themselves, in quotations, being the idea of a metaphor of different sins, like, the 7 deadly sins all sort of being represented by a demon. Then there's the idea of a home. The home being like not just a house or a place you're living in, but your home being your sanctuary, which is kind of naturally imbued with your own energy, creating this kind of spiritual barrier, which I get because you do kind of... Every house has its own musk. But also it's like
Gross.
It is like this, you feel safe, and it's, I guess, it's that positive emotion of being home, It is kind of protective. I don't know.
I agree. There's an energy to it.
agree.
There's definitely an energy imprint you leave in your
and
space.
when you buy a house or you move into a place that someone's lived in before, it takes a while to clean out that energy.
Right. Yeah.
Even if
exactly
it's not bad, it's just not yours. You have to get it out of there.
Right. Yeah. So you do the what do you call it? The smudging or whatever to sort of cleanse the house.
Exactly.
Well, that gets me onto the idea of immurement. 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 And it's this ancient practice that cuts across many cultures and civilizations, apparently. The most famous examples being that artifacts entombed within Egyptian pharaohs in the pyramids, and these objects were supposedly found in, it was a ritual, basically. They found in walls of Roman villas and all sorts of, ordinary houses and stuff that they found during archaeological excavations. And these objects were basically the same sort of thing. Were meant to set up this spiritual barrier that, so evil couldn't come in. So there's that idea too, which, I guess inviting something in is kind of breaking that seal, breaking that barrier. Also, I guess Freemasonry has a history of, I guess there's buildings that, Freemasonry temples and stuff, they always have this cornerstone, I guess, that they put in that's like engraved with their sigils and all the different, practices and stuff that also is the same sort of deal. So immurement is a different deal. And there's an interesting thing that popped up, I guess, in England and Ireland and, in the UK back in the day. Was also customary in many regions to bury dead cats in the walls or under floors of houses to ward off malicious spirits.
A dead cat?
Dead cats. That's gotta smell good.
It sounds like the live cats in buildings are really little fuckheads.
So it makes sense to use a dead cat. Put
a dead one in there. Yeah.
Cats, man. Well, cats are well respected in history.
Well, cats were worshipped in ancient Egypt, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
Right? That this is kind of passed down, that somehow the cats were protecting the house. It makes sense.
Yeah, cats kind of do, though. They protect the house anyways. Think about it. They're always killing like mosquitoes and mice and rats and like little things that are around the house. Yeah. They're kind of wonderful. They're like giant spiders in a way. So I could see that. I could see how they became the protectors of the house. I love cats, by the way. I'm not a dog person. I'm a cat person. I just love them because you can leave all day and come back and they don't give a shit if you're there or not. I just like that. I got enough emotion in my life. Anyways, I digress.
Rick, it's like having a bitchy girlfriend live with you. I'm a dog person.
Or just a complete asshole living in your house.
Yeah.
I like that.
I have kids. I have already
me, don't
a couple
talk
of those
to
little
me.
things. Yeah. So another thing that sort of popped up, what I thought was super interesting, was serial killer Richard Chase, known as the Vampire of Sacramento. When he was caught, there was something he mentioned. So he told detectives that he only attacked people who had their doors unlocked. Because he saw the sign...
That is so creepy.
Yeah, he saw the sign of locked doors. He wouldn't go and lock doors because, he saw the sign of an unlocked door being an active invitation for him to come in.
Wow.
Oof.
Lock your doors, people, is what I'm saying.
Lock your doors. Don't answer it if there's weird knocking.
Jeez.
Right.
don't get depressed. If you're super depressed right now, call Sonia Grace. Yeah. That's the point of this. And the fact that it's been happening since like 4,000 years ago, like, look, we have been possessed as humans since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Once we get into that place of letting things in.
It's not a recent concept, yeah. It goes way back, which I think is part of the reason why I couldn't find like a solid beginning to this. It was just, it's always been. And so then it got me onto thinking about, well, it isn't just doorways and windows that seem to be this, threshold area. But we've also briefly sort of mentioned before the idea of Ouija boards.
Yeah.
Being like some, portals, I guess, being open portals that
and
sort of...
mirrors.
Mirrors is a big one. So there's, the idea of scrying, which is... You were saying, Melissa, it's not so much mirrors, but just some sort of reflective surface.
Right. So it could be like a cup of water. It could be like a crystal. Any kind of clear surface where like you're trying to bring something interdimensionally into it. You're like drawing it to this so it reflects back to you. But it doesn't need to be a mirror.
Yeah. Well, then there's this idea called psychomantium. Which is in parapsychology and spiritualism. A psychomantium is a small enclosed area set up with a comfortable chair, dim lighting, and a mirror angled so as not to reflect anything but darkness, intended to communicate with the spirits of the dead. So, there's stories going back. I tried to look at, find decent stories of like someone like attempting to, there's like Bloody Mary, that whole story. There's a whole bunch of these different things, of inviting something into your life, or just the mirror being a portal in general. And I found this interesting scientific, it was just like a rabbit hole I went down. I apologize. This is one thing after, ooh, look at that. It's like squirrel.
Threshold.
Yeah.
More
so
possession.
I found this like, this interesting case that popped up in a scientific article. It was called Monsters in the Mirror. It was in 2014. And in this study, participants were asked to stare into a mirror in dim lighting for 10 minutes. And they had these fascinating results where it demonstrated that 66% of the participants experienced huge deformations in their own face. Like their face just became deformed and took on other forms.
I've done that before,
28,
yes. That's what happens, yeah.
Right, and 28% saw a completely unknown person looking back at them. And then 48%... These numbers don't add up, do they?
Yeah, it's like 150%.
Yeah. I don't know how that works. Anyway, this
whatever.
is just... anyway, so
this
a
is
large
a really
amount.
legit study. Okay, go on.
No, it is. It really is. I don't know what these numbers... there must be something. Anyway, so at 48% it says saw a fantastical or monstrous beings. And that's where I came across a bunch of different stories of people talking about like staring into a mirror.
Yeah.
And there's one kid who was talking about seeing like a reptilian creature. Another guy saw like a demon with like horns and stuff.
Ooh.
But I guess there is a science behind apparently why this works. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun enough for me. It just seemed like they were, trying to talk down the idea that there might be something, I don't know, that kind of... There is a portal-like nature to these things,
Yeah, well, just quickly before you go on, like I've done that before. I've stared in the mirror and done that before as long as possible, and I did. All of a sudden, I was looking at someone else, and my face started to look demonic. It was really kind of bizarre. It's like you're not meant to look at yourself for that long. It might just be like a human psychology thing, like I don't know why. It's like
maybe it's your shadow self.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's it's like there's a reverse.
I hope I'm a pretty demon
of this world.
Oh yeah, I was handsome AF, but it was definitely not. It was definitely
How
creepy.
about like one of those hot ones from like a comic book or something? Like them all like carved up, big boobs, like red,
just carved,
just an unrealistic. Yeah, awesome.
On that subject, I would caution anyone from looking up on Reddit the word mirror and finding something in a mirror, because man, there's a lot of people get turned on by different things.
Wow.
So
that's weird.
the other thing
what happens?
Yeah.
there was just penises everywhere, and I I was just like, that's not a demon. Ah!